Hello, little Earthlings, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about true crime while I do my makeup. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into this video. Mary Flora Bell was born on May 26th of 1957. Her mother was Betty McCricket, and Betty McCricket was a teenage lady of the night who, by her own accounts, didn't know her father. And when Mary was born, she was quoted saying, "Take that thing away from me." Betty did not know who Mary's dad was, and Mary was not her first child. There was a neighborhood lady who really desperately wanted a child, and she couldn't have one of her own, and so she wanted to adopt. So Mary's mom gave Mary up and, said that she could have her. Unfortunately, Mary's sister went looking for her, and she knocked on the lady's door, and so the lady ended up giving back Mary. So Mary was also known to be accident prone. Mary accidentally fell out of a window. Mary accidentally swallowed a bunch of pills and was rushed to the hospital. So the reason why I put accidentally and I say it like that, it's because people they claimed they witnessed Betty throw Mary out of the window. She didn't fall. And because of this fall, Mary developed a head injury. Some people think that Betty wanted to kill Mary, while others believe she had Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So basically, she enjoyed the attention and the sympathy she was getting from her daughter's accidents. She also had a stepdad named Billy Bell, who was a career criminal. Some believed that Betty was even exploiting Mary to be a lady of the night like herself. And mind you, Mary is very, very young at this age. She's not even 10 years old yet. So growing up with all of this abuse in her household, Mary started taking out her pain on other children, little children. On May 11th of 1968, Mary was playing with a 3-year-old who fell from the top of an air raid shelter and was badly injured. Now, everybody thought this was an accident, so nobody was really upset until the very next day. Three mothers came to report to the police that Mary had tried to choke their daughters. Nothing much came out of the mothers reporting this to the police. All Mary really got was a lecture and a slap on the wrist. She was told to stop it. Basically, she was told to stop it. No charges were actually ever filed. So this encouraged Mary to continue what she was doing. And so eventually, Mary lured a little boy named Martin Brown. He was 4 years old. She lured him to an abandoned building with the promise of candy. After she lured Martin to the building, she strangled him. And she was only 10 years old when she did this. After she was done strangling him, she just left the body there, and then she came back with her friend Norma Bell. No relation, they just have the same last name, but they are not related. So before she could come back, though, and show Norma, these two little boys, local boys who were playing around the abandoned building, found the body. Norma and Mary were both there when the police showed up to investigate the crime scene, but there really wasn't much done. This was 1968, so forensics really weren't huge. They were really much non-existent, and so because of that, the police found a drop of blood on Martin, and then they also found an empty pill bottle. So they kind of just concluded that this 4-year-old boy accidentally took all these pills and he just OD'd from the pills. That's essentially, they put 2 and 2 together and they kind of made it equal 4. Basically, Mary got away with doing what she did. Some weird things started happening a couple weeks after Martin's death. Martin's nursery was actually broken into. So the nursery that he went to was broken into and it was vandalized. There was furniture that was smashed, broken up, and thrown across the room. And then they also found cryptic notes, handwritten notes, that were placed in the nursery. One of them said, I kill so I may come back. And then another one said, "We murder Martin Brown." So to police officers, this was definitely a sign. They knew that whoever trashed the nursery wanted those notes to be left behind. They wanted the police to find them. But all police had at the time were 4 handwritten notes in a classroom of a child that had just died. There really wasn't anything for them. And so they kind of chalked it up to it wasn't related. They kind of just said, whoever did these notes maybe just did them for the heck of it. And then that was it. So this wasn't the first string of events or strings of vandalism or break-ins that this nursery had. So they decided that they were going to instill security cameras. A couple days after these security cameras were actually installed, Norma and Mary were caught. They were caught outside after they set the alarms off. So the police showed up, but because they were outside and not inside the nursery, they were able to claim their innocence, and the police just basically gave them a warning and set them free. So this is where things get really, really strange. So after, the incident at the nursery where they're set free, Mary actually goes to visit Martin Brown's house, the boy that she just killed. And his mom, June, answers the door. And, June, thinking that, Mary is over to play, basically tries to break the news that, like, you know, he can't play anymore. He's no longer living with that. Like, he's no longer alive. Like, basically thinking that this little girl is just over here to play. No. Well, Mary sits there and Mary says, no, she clarifies, I know Martin is dead. I'm not here to play with Martin. I'm here to see Martin in his coffin. Horrified, his mom slams the door in this little girl's face and tells her to get the heck away. She doesn't realize, obviously, that this was not the first time Mary had saw his body. And again, Mary tried to go back to see his body originally with Norma, but the boys were already there, so she never actually got to go back to see it. Mary was not trying to keep this a secret either. She was boasting. She was boasting to her classmates about the fact that she killed Martin Brown. But she had gained a rapport, a reputation basically of being a show off, so no one actually believed that she did this. So on July 31st of 1968, Mary and Norma are both playing outside when they see 3-year-old Brian Howe. He is wandering the streets. So if you're wondering why a 3-year-old boy is wandering the streets, it was 1968. It was a different time. That was more normal. So he was wandering the streets when Norma and Mary, they lured him in with candy. So the same thing that Mary did with Martin, she did with Brian. So they took him to a piece of wasteland where it was overgrown with weeds, and they found a place that was hidden by concrete blocks, and Mary strangled him. Mary decided to go overboard. She took a pair of scissors and she mutilated him. And I mean, I don't want to go into grave details because this is a 3-year-old boy, but she mutilated him. When we were done, like when both Mary and Norma were done doing whatever they were doing, when they felt satisfied, they just left him there. They just left him there. So then Hal's sister, he's 3 and it's getting late. She's wondering where he's at. So she decides to start looking for him. She decides to go around and, see if anybody knows any information. Well, Mary and Norma, they both decide that they're also going to be part of this search as well. So they do. And they are searching with his sister. Then Mary decides that she points out, the concrete blocks, the blocks that they killed Brian. She points out those blocks and says, let's check over there. Now Norma instantly is like, he wouldn't be there. Don't worry about it. So Brian's sister decides, you know what? Let's keep on moving. So they continue to search. The very next day, his body is found. So it's found and the neighborhood is horrified. The difference between Brian's body and Martin's body is that Martin's body, the police were able to explain away simply because there was an empty pill bottle. But with Brian, there was no empty pill bottle. So therefore, they know this is not an accident. They know that this is on purpose. Because it's a 3-year-old boy, and because of the way he was killed, police started thinking that, okay, well, we're looking for a predator, clearly. And so that's what they start searching for. They start searching for a predator. It wasn't until the police got the coroner's report that new evidence came in. When Brian's body had cooled, his blood cooled with it, and they were in shock. More bruises started to form because of the cooling of his blood, and what they found was that the letter M had been carved into his stomach. And because of the force, because they realized that there really was little force used, they started realizing, we might not be looking for a predator, but more of a child. And so this is when they started interviewing local children to see if they had heard anything. They interviewed over 1,200 local children, and a lot of them kind of had the same thing to say about Mary and Norma's weird behavior. One boy stated that he saw Mary with Brian the day that, he disappeared. And that actually proved to be the last sighting of Brian. Then other children started talking about how Mary flat out would just say that she killed them. Like she flat out confessed to the murders. Because of that, they decided to interview Mary and Norma. So detectives bring in Norma and Mary and ask them, was there anything weird that they saw that day? So Mary was becoming what they described as incredibly creepy because her mannerisms and the way that she behaved was not normal, or her lack of empathy, as I should say. Her mannerisms and her lack of empathy were just not normal for an 11-year-old girl. Because at this time, she's 11. When she killed Martin Brown, she was 10 years old. At this point, she's now 11. So it's a little strange. People there, they don't understand really what's going on. Norma and Mary really did not contain their excitement when they were listening to the murders. Like they literally could not hold in the fact that they were excited about the murders. Norma seemed excited, while Mary was very evasive, but she was more evasive when they would bring up the fact that somebody had said that they had seen her with Brian. They know the day that Brian, was murdered. Mary's behavior was also questioned the day of Brian's funeral. She was seen lurking around his house. She was seen rubbing her hands together and laughing when she saw the coffin come out. These were all things, again, that were very, very strange, and they caught the attention of the police. During the second interview with Mary makes up a whole story. She claims that Martin was actually with an 8-year-old boy that day, and she saw the 8-year-old boy hit Martin, and then also he was carrying a pair of scissors. So it's the scissors. The scissors are what caught the police's attention. And the reason why they did is because police officers or investigators, they never mentioned the scissors at all in the news. And the reason why they never mentioned the scissors is because sometimes police officers, they'll intentionally leave things out of the news and the media, so that way if somebody comes around, if somebody has information and they state particular things that were not actually in the news, they're more than likely talking to somebody that was either part of the murder or actually knows what happened. When Mary placed the scissors in that 8-year-old boy's hand, she became the top of the suspect list because no one knew about them. And this is where her story started to crumble. So the 8-year-old boy that Mary accused of being the last person to see Brian, well, he actually was at the airport the day of Brian's murder. So there was no way he could have committed this crime. Now, police are still talking to Norma during all this. And Norma would talk about the case, but she didn't give any useful details. She definitely was not taking it seriously. So eventually Norma gets it together. Eventually she collects herself and she decides that she's gonna go tell the police what happened. So Norma's version of events was that Mary had came to her the day after Martin went missing, and she claimed that she confessed. Mary said that she was the one that killed Martin, and that she also explained that she actually enjoyed the feeling of strangling somebody to death, and she wanted to show Norma what she did. Now, Mary denies this. Mary says that Norma is lying. Norma is not telling the truth. And this is where Mary's story even breaks down even more, because she finally admits to actually being with Brian, but she claims that it wasn't her that actually strangled Brian. It was still Norma. So she finally just backtracks and states that she was there. It just wasn't her that did it. The forensic report came back and it stated that the M that was carved into his stomach, it originally started with the letter N. So both girls decided they were going to turn on each other after that. After that came out, they were both like, she did it. And so ultimately they were both arrested and they were both charged. And this was a field day for the press. They labeled these children as evil seeds, rotten to the core, and bad by nature. When the trial started, the prosecutors basically said that Mary's reason for murdering was purely out of pleasure and the excitement of killing. Evidence against Mary started adding up. Forensics experts concluded that the notes that were found in Martin Brown's nursery, the ones that said "we kill Martin Brown," those were tied back to Norma and Mary. And then also there were fibers on the girls' clothing that were found in both scenes. Norma Bell, again, no relation, was deemed an unwilling accomplice that fell under a bad seed. So the judge actually deemed Mary as the bad seed and the bad apple, and she was also a danger to her other children. And I think the reason why this was is because Norma, again, only was involved in the second murder, and it wasn't even proven that she actually did the killing, whereas Mary had confessed to, I think, both of them to other people, and she definitely was involved in Martin by herself. So therefore, it was easy to pick her as the worst of both of them, in my opinion. Because of this, Norma was acquitted of all charges, while Mary was sentenced to life behind bars at Her Majesty's pleasure. So basically what that means is you are in jail for the rest of your life. You do have life behind bars until either Queen Elizabeth, or basically somebody acting under Queen Elizabeth, she decides if you deserve to come out. So you could sit there for the rest of your life, or Queen Elizabeth or whoever could come in and decide that you are set free. Mary Bell was convicted of manslaughter and not murder, and the reason why is because a court psychologist said that she deemed classic signs of psychopathy, and therefore she could not be fully held accountable to her actions. Mary spent 12 years in prison, shifting from institution to institution, with an intermediate escape in 1977. In 1980, she was finally released at the age of 23, and she was given a whole new identity. In 1984, she gave birth to a daughter, and even though this has happened over 4 decades ago, 40 years, people still try to actively, people, the news, the press, they still actively try to seek out Mary Bell to this day. And some people actually do find her. I don't know when the last sighting was, I'm sorry. But some people actually do find her. In 2009, Martin Brown's mother, June Richardson, she discussed with the Daily Mail about the consideration that the British legal system was giving Mary Bell. And she says that it was frustrating because it seems like it was all about how she needs to be protected. And therefore, she doesn't feel like the rights were extended to the victims of the ones that she murdered. They did not get the same courtesy as Mary Bell did. And so yes, that's the end of the story. That is the story of Mary Bell. She was very young at the time she did what she did. I think that right now she's just living her life. I don't think she's made the news. I think that, she's just living in her autonomy. The video is over, but for the people that care, I will be back. I'm just gonna go do what I usually do, my eyelashes, my lipstick, and then my wig. So I'll see you guys in a second. So I changed the media as well, but this is the final look. If you guys liked today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I post twice a week. And until next time, have fun, little Earthlings. Peace out.